Good evening, everyone. This is Jay Simmons. I'm the president and founder of Mach 30, and I'd like to welcome you to the June 2014 Reports Hangout. We're a little light-handed because of summer travel schedules this evening, so I'm joined just by Aaron Harper, one of our key volunteers and one of the engineers who's primarily responsible for GroundSphere, one of the open source hardware projects we have going on. But we're going to still go ahead and do the reports. It's been a very exciting month. I got several very cool things to tell you all about, and Aaron's got some progress updates on GroundSphere. So without further ado, we'll get going. For those that don't know Mach 30, we're a nonprofit dedicated to hastening the advancement of humanity into a spacefaring civilization through open design, sustainable leadership, and a bias towards mature technology. Our work would not be possible without the gifts and donations of time and money from our volunteers and supporters like you, so please visit mach30.org and click on the Catalyst Club link to join our group of supporters. The Reports Hangout is something we do every month where we update everyone on the status of projects and activities at Mach 30. Those activities are broken down by what the board of directors lovingly refers to as buses, which is really another way of saying major project area. We have a number of major project areas, which range from business side things like partnerships to spaceflight related things like the Shepard Test Stand bus, which is a bus for managing the development of our very first open source spaceflight hardware project. I'm going to start with a couple of buses that are not doing a lot right this minute as we're focusing our attention elsewhere, so we don't have reports on the partnerships or human resources bus. These buses are more the business side of Mach 30. They have to do with building and continuing partnerships with other organizations and managing our volunteer and eventual staff needs. The first bus that we have a report on is some activity that Jeremy asked me to share with everyone, which is the Advancing Open Source Hardware bus. So part of our mission involves generally supporting the wider audience of open source hardware. Mach 30 really believes that a rising tide helps all ships, and that there can't be a healthy open source spaceflight hardware community without an extremely vibrant open source hardware community. So we dedicate a percentage of our effort towards supporting the wider community. And this month, the work that's been going on there is working to explore the state of open source CAD tools. So one of the things that we've long identified over here at Mach 30 as a need for open source hardware is strong, low cost, or better yet, free or open source would be the best possible solution, CAD and modeling tools. It's amazing how expensive CAD tools are, and even the ones that are freely available for educational use have significant restrictions on how they may be used and would prevent folks from being able to use them across into businesses, for example. So if you're going to do open source hardware, we really believe that it's essential to have the most availability to your CAD drawings as possible. And Jeremy has been looking into parametric CAD modeling with more programming-oriented tools. Examples include OpenSCAD and CAD Query. One of the things he's done as part of that is to put together a chart of CAD tools versus Mach 30 CAD needs. Did some really great analysis. It turns out, unsurprisingly, that there isn't an obvious open source answer, but we are still very excited to see some of the features that are out there. We've had some really wonderful conversations with some of the developers of the open source CAD tools that are out there, especially the folks behind CAD Query. And all of this is both in lines about this general need that we perceive for ourselves and for the larger community around CAD modeling for open source hardware, but we're also going to be doing a hackathon activity at Apogee, our summer conference that we're doing the very first one of later this month. And that hackathon activity is going to center around using these kind of tools to draft a model of a possible Shepard 2.0 structure. So that's all very, very exciting stuff. It's definitely a need that we need to fulfill, and Jeremy's been just going to town on that and doing some really great demos and examples. I can't wait to get us all in the same place and be working with that on Shepard again. The other thing that Jeremy mentioned to me while we were chatting about this earlier today was that he has been also starting to toy with the idea of experimenting with a paired programming approach to CAD modeling. For folks that are not familiar with paired programming, it's an idea out of the, I don't know how you say it, more cutting edge and hipper side of programming that believes that two heads are better than one when writing code. Having done some of this myself at work, I can attest to the fact that you can get a lot more efficient development work done sometimes under paired circumstances. So I'm also really interested to see how those experiments do, and hopefully get with Jeremy on a couple sessions so we can do some CAD work in paired work. So very good stuff, very, very good stuff. I'm so happy to see some progress on that. It's been something we need to do for a long time. The next bus is the export control bus, and this is the bus that's responsible for developing and implementing export control policies and procedures. And really, this is basically another name for the Export Control Task Force. And for those that aren't familiar with export controls, this is a set of regulations that the federal government here in the U.S. have that regulate how technology and what technology can be exported outside the United States. It's primarily a means of making sure that weapons and weapons-related and other defense-related technologies don't wind up in the bad guys' hands, and we're very pro that part. However, the deeply unfortunate thing for us is that rockets look a lot like missiles. If you don't believe me, just go down to any museum where there's a rocket garden, and you will see these things. In fact, some of them were missiles to begin with. And so, needless to say, a lot of the technology we work with is export control. So the ECTF, the Export Control Task Force, is working diligently on how to address that the tug of war between sharing everything with open source and needing to respect export control regulations. And one of those projects is the ITAR-EZ. It's a self-determination form to make ITAR one of the more familiar and the first one, in fact, that everyone thinks of when you hear export controls regulation sets, easier to follow for someone without a legal background. And I am extremely happy to report that there is a live sample of the first part of the ITAR-EZ form that has been complete, thanks to the hard work of everyone on the ECTF, and that this week, with the blessing of the ECTF, on behalf of Mach 30, I sent an initial email to the Department of State informing them of the work we've been doing on this and asking them for some assistance in reviewing it to make sure that we have been doing things in a way that really does reflect the intent and the requirements of ITAR. I've not heard anything back yet, but it's only been a couple of days, and the Department of State is a very large organization. It's the kind of thing where we should expect it to take a couple of times before the right people see us. We're definitely coming out of left field. So it's all just part of the process, and at least we have started to move forward on that. So great job to the ECTF.
That is good news.
Yeah. The next bus is the Shepard Test Stand bus, which is the bus for managing development of the Shepard Test Stand. Shepard is a small-scale rocket motor test stand. It usually tests SDs and other similar small-scale hobby rocket motors. And the update this month is that while we continue to wrap up things with Ground Sphere, Shepard is sitting on hold, so there are no new updates. But that takes us to the open source spaceflight hardware project incubator bus, which is the bus that is responsible for taking new ideas for projects and maturing them to the point of being able to be standalone projects. And in that bus, the primary activity is right now is Ground Sphere, which is a small purpose-built ground station for low cost to be able to pick up tweets from space from SkyCube, a kickstarted CubeSat that launched earlier this year. And Aaron has been doing ground tests on ground sphere. So why don't you take it away, Aaron, and tell us how things are going testing-wise.
All right. Well, initially testing was the trials and tribulations. We had a couple pieces of hardware decide not to play nice, um, including one where I embarrassingly got excited and smacked the unit and ended up shorting it out. Because it did work. However, we've gotten a computer that works reliably, a transmitter that works reliably, and so all the lab test requirements are satisfied. That we had everything we needed to do it, so we went and did it without further ado. Lab tests are a 22-step process with some very, very specific guidelines and instructions in order to get accurate measurements. And to make sure the measurements were within spec, the processes were repeated 3 times. And if there were any kind of outliers, we would have repeated the test, because obviously we missed something. However, the 3 tests were within 0.1%, excuse me, 0.01% of each other. They were completely consistent, and in fact, surprisingly so. And we ended up doing a lab test under what could be considered worst-case scenarios. We had a noise floor of almost minus 54 dBm, which is a fairly noisy environment, which is not a surprise. We have a lot of computer equipment in the lab. So it was anything but an ideal environment. And to my mind, that makes for a better test than doing something in a lab that you can never replicate in the real world. The first test was a functional test. That worked beautifully. Pictures are on the Open Design Engine test wiki. And to make a long story short, which might be a little too late, in the simulated SkyCube reception test, which is where we get as close as possible to an actual satellite reception as far as power level and distance. There's a balance there. We needed, in order to do the decode of the digital signal, we needed 17 dB signal difference between the noise floor and the actual signal. We ended up with just a hair over 20. Now, 3 dB doesn't sound a lot until you realize it's a logarithmic scale, and the signal doubles for every 3 dB. So we actually have twice the signal necessary to do a digital decode and meet the criteria that ground sphere was designed to meet.
You cut out, for me at least, on that last part, so you can go back to just from 3 dB does not sound like a lot.
Okay. 3 dB does not sound like a lot, but you have to realize that it is a logarithmic scale, and 3 dB represents a doubling of the signal. So it can be said that ground sphere has the ability to pick up the signal and amplify it to about twice the amount that would be required to meet the criteria. I am a happy camper.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Certainly.
That's great, Aaron.
Yeah. Follow up, we're looking at doing the field testing comes next. If the weather plays nice, which it looks like it's going to, we'll be doing the next step, which is a 23-step process to do the field test out in the field with a longer distance and away from sources, more of a real-world test. I don't expect things to be any different, but that's why we're testing. Um, and I have not checked the flyovers, but the goal will be to have enough time to complete the field tests and have a target of opportunity, either SkyCube or some other satellite transmitting on frequency, so that we can actually do an on-orbit test at the same time.
Cool.
And that's about all I got on this.
Excellent. And the other bit of news, just in terms of GroundSphere, is that GroundSphere will be one of the projects that will show off at Apogee. So if you are going to have a chance to join us on June 28th over in Indianapolis at Club Siberia, you can come see GroundSphere in person.
I plan to be there.
All right, speaking of Apogee, that takes us to the events bus. The events bus is, as logically as it sounds, the bus that is the project area for managing our events that we run and the events that we have major presence at. So when we go to conferences and have booths, or when we run our own large on-air events and hangouts, or in this case, Apogee. And I'm very, very happy to say that all things related to Apogee are moving along nicely. All the contracts are signed. The web page is live. If you go to Mach 30, that's MACH 30 / Apogee dash the Roman numeral 1, so Apogee-I. You can see all the details about Apogee, including how to get a room and where all the events are, the agenda, and how to sign up to display your own DIY space-related hardware project. It doesn't have to be open source, though we really like open source. And it doesn't have to be directly space, it can be space-related. So if you are doing robotics, or things plant-related, or communications and radio, or pretty much anything, as long as you can say, hey, this is how it applies to space, we'd be happy to have you included in the exhibit. And I really want to also remind everyone that we're inviting all Mach 30 volunteers to join us. We'd really love to have you in person, but if you can't make it in person, we're going to have a number of on-air and off-air hangouts so the entire community can be as involved as possible. So please reserve Saturday, June 28th, and if possible, join us in Indianapolis. And I want to also be sure to thank our sponsors. Club Siberia, Indy's Makerspace, is one of our sponsors and also the location for most of the events. And the Hampton Inn Indianapolis East is also a sponsor. They are also where our folks will be staying in our hotel block, and where we'll be having an Apogee Mach 30 party on Saturday night. Which I think takes us to our next bus, which is the revenue generation bus. And this bus is it's really the overarching name for the revenue generation committee activities. And this is a committee that was stood up last year to help Mach 30 become more sufficient at raising funds and earning income in order to pay for all the awesome hardware projects we do. Like they said in the 50s, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. And right now, as part of their work, they've identified that we need more people to know about Mach 30. So first of all, if you are hearing the sound of my voice, please share Mach 30 on your social media feeds. But also, part of that is that we're in the process of selecting a social media intern. So there's a position posted on LinkedIn, and we've been getting applications, and I'm very excited to say that all of them look very interesting and like people that would do a great job. So the RGC and the board have their work cut out for them to select an intern. If you can do us a favor, also share that. The position is in the minutes, and we'll make the link. We've been advertising on our social media. We'll continue to share it there, but if you see it, please reshare. And we should be beginning the process of evaluating applicants very soon so that we'll have the intern all summer long. And that's just one of those things that I'm very excited about, because it's one of those things that we definitely need more. We do very cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to more people hearing about it. The next bus is the messaging bus, which is the bus responsible for things like the website and printed materials and all of our communications and marketing work. And Chris couldn't make it, but he, as part of his work volunteering for Mach 30, has done a really lovely redesign of mach30.org. And if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go visit mach30.org and take a look at the new website. We're very, very proud of it. The website launched this month. We had a couple of bugs, but we've been working through them, and they've all been minor so far. And he's got on his plate to follow that up with completing some documentation so that the blog posters and fellow admins have material showing how things are different or the same from when we were running our previous site. And in fact, one of the things we've also been doing with it is Chris has been helping to get some content published that have been sitting in the hopper for a while, and I think we've actually published a couple of things from Aaron lately. We posted a blog post, I think, about when you went to the local open source hardware event, and I think we just published this week also the capacitor testing with the fire foam.
It's all about smoke and flames. We all know that.
That's right. That's right. So, well, that one I'm actually really proud of, Aaron, because it's another good example of one of you know, open source hardware means sharing all the things, yes, including when things don't work so well. And we have, for a couple of years now, been on and off blogging and talking about wherever we can about that it's important to share your failures. And so when you did that great write-up on your private Google+, I just immediately was like, we got to share that with on the blog. So thank you for allowing us to do that, and for doing such a good write-up in the first place. That was an easy sell, like, since it was already sitting there. So good stuff.
It was actually part of a deal I have made with the significant other. I am free to blow things up, but I have to write about it and learn from it.
Amen. That's, you know, I'll take that. That's a good lesson for all of us at Mach 30. So you may blow things up, but you must write about it and learn from it. That's perfect. That's perfect. Excellent. All right, and that takes us to our last bus, which is the operations bus. And the operations bus is the bus that manages the day-to-day business side of Mach 30 stuff. So paying the bills, making sure that our 501c3 paperwork is in good order, and stuff like that is operations. And the main activity happening there right now is the insurance hunt. So we've been working to acquire the various levels of insurance we require at the times we require them. We have a really, really great agent who is very candid with us and and listens to our needs and provides good feedback about when we need what and when. So we're very excited about the agent. Unfortunately, we're going on 2 months since he put into his people to get us an actual quote, and the quote has still not happened yet. He and I are having some email discussions about that. If things don't clear up very soon, no matter how good the agent is, if the rest of the company is not supporting us, we're going to have to move on, I'm afraid. So I'll be discussing that further with the board. There's not any board members here at the time, so at the present time, but I'll be talking to the board about that, and we'll do whatever it takes so that we have the insurance we need. But there you go.
It is what it is.
It is what it is correct. So that's my list of buses, which means that's a reports hangout. When we're low populated, we don't generally get as much discussion going. So I want to thank everyone for your time. If you're watching this live or if you are watching this recorded, thank you for your interest in Mach 30, and I ask you to continue to support us. Again, please take a look at the Catalyst Club and consider making a financial donation. Also, consider hitting us up on Google Plus for an invite to our Engineer Speak Hangouts or our other Hangouts, and join us to help us hasten the advance of humanity into a spacefaring civilization. And with that, I will bid you good night, and ad astra persivitatem, to the stars through community.